Is Kenny Pickett the Steelers' franchise quarterback? We'll get into that here in a little bit, but I'm Andrew.
And I'm Rodney.
And this is A-Rod Pod, and today we got a guest on here. We got Ian.
What's up? I'm excited to be on here and talk with you guys. Let's get into it.
So, we've seen Kenny play a few games already. What's your reaction to these games?
My personal reaction, he's had some bright spots. I'm not going to lie. He threw, over 50 passes against that amazing Buffalo defense. And I think he threw a good amount of interceptions, no touchdowns, but he had over 300 yards, and a lot of the passes looked real good. If he had a better offensive line, more time, I think he may have even gotten more yards. But other than that, it's a lot of interceptions. It's a lot of, what are you doing plays.
Yeah.
But he seems to have the heart for the game.
We've seen some poor decision-making from him, but Ian, you've seen a couple games. What's your reaction to him playing?
I got to go along with Rodney for a little bit about his decision-making. We saw it in the Dolphins game near the end. He was leading a pretty good drive, and then he threw that pick, not much time left, blew that game away.
Who was it to? To Noah Igbenogany? Is that his name?
Pretty
sure.
Yeah.
We were saying first game he came in, brought a spark, scored 2 rushing touchdowns. That was actually a game he subbed in for Mitch Trubisky. But even that game, he ended up turning the ball over, throwing 3 interceptions.
His legs have been impressive. I didn't expect that for him coming straight out of college. He always had that, quickness to him. But he really is fast in that pocket. He gets past those edge rushers pretty easily. It's really impressive for a rookie.
Yeah, we've seen him rush a lot in college. We got to remember the slide cancel. That was some drama, but
the Kenny rule or the Pickett rule.
Yeah. So you brought up Mitch Trubisky. I would like to get your guys' opinions on this. Who do you think's better, Mitch or Kenny, and who should be playing?
Who's better? That's a tough one. I hate to say it. I almost want to say Mitch is better. He gets in his own head a lot. I think if you want to win games and you feel like you got a Super Bowl team, you think you got all the pieces together, and you're between Mitch and Kenny, I think you start Mitch. But if you're in the situation the Steelers are in right now, there's no reason not to play Pickett. He's not getting any younger as he's 24. Is he 24 now?
Yes.
It's
he's
just
24.
The clock is ticking, and getting him as much experience as possible to really get himself acclimated is going to be the most important thing they can do.
So, who do you think, Ian? I saw you nodding your head over there. Who do you think, Mitch or Kenny?
I got to disagree, and I got to go with Kenny Pickett. From what I saw with Mitch Trubisky in the first couple games is that he plays almost like he's scared to lose the game instead of trying to win. I mean, even think back to week 1 where he did get that big win against the Bengals. The defense played out of their mind. They blocked the PAT. I'm pretty sure Minka had a pick 6 early on in the game. I mean, from what I've even seen from Mitch, I don't see much from him. Even his days at Chicago, I mean, he wasn't bad, but I don't think he's good. I'd say about mediocre at best.
He plays not to lose. He plays to not lose. He doesn't play to win, and that really shows in his game. Very safe player, and that kills him a lot of the time. You can't be throwing down your check down on 4th and 12. It's just not going to work.
So, you mentioned he's 24. That he played what? He played when other people should have been their 5th year in college. So, he's older than most rookies in the NFL. How do you think that affects his outlook?
I don't know if it affects it as much as it's hyped up to be. Age is very important, but what it comes down to is skill. You could get, 19-year-old, 1-star recruit, a nobody, and he doesn't have, more potential than the 24-year-old NFL quarterback, Kenny Pickett. The age is a factor when you're talking about players of similar caliber, but I think, it's 6 years till he's 30. If he can spend 6 years as a starting quarterback in the NFL, he's only going to get better because that spot isn't a given. There are so many quarterbacks coming out of the draft every year, sitting in free agency, whatever. You can't just get a starting quarterback spot. So I think if he really keeps working, the age thing is going to be something, we long forget about.
Okay, so that brings me to another question I have here. Was Kenny Pickett a good draft pick for the Steelers? And if not, who should they have taken over Kenny Pickett?
I gotta say, yes, I think they should have took Kenny Pickett because I'm looking at this quarterback situation, and Mitch, me personally, I don't think he's ever going to really do much for him. And, with Pickett, at least one day with what he's shown, he shows the potential that maybe one day he could lead this team to be a contender.
Would you take, if you're redrafting it, knowing what we know now, do you take Kenny Pickett over Malik Willis?
I got to say yes, 100%. I've seen Malik Willis. The dude just doesn't really look like a quarterback. Big, he's physical. He's
it's almost like he should be a running back.
Yeah.
That's what I've taken from watching him. But, would you say Kenny's the future of the Steelers?
I don't know if I can say that he is a future, considering, I felt like he was a bit of a reach there. There's a reason there was only one quarterback taken in the first 2 rounds. It was just a weak class, and they wanted that hometown kid who was, granted, really good his final year in college. Definitely deserved to be drafted, and a lot of people did have him in the first round. But when it came to players like Tyler Linderbaum, who could have completely kickstarted their offensive line, or Kyer Elam, who's doing fantastic for the great Buffalo Bills defense. He's starting as a rookie. It's fantastic. But they needed that quarterback. So it's kind of a weird situation. Do we think that Kenny Pickett is going to be the guy who's going to be leading them to a Super Bowl in 5-10 years' time? I don't know if I can say that he will be. I'm sure he'll be fine. But
We also,
tough.
when you say that, we also got to look at how bad overall the team is. The defense has its highlights here and there, but their offense is just pathetic.
Yep, it's really anemic, especially with Najee Harris having the worst sophomore slump I can really remember. It is just embarrassing, especially with undrafted free agent Jalen Warren showing him up every game. This was a guy people were drafting top 10, some top 5 in fantasy. He was supposed to be this amazing player this year. And, I'm not going to say that he's got the perfect offense. That offensive line is shoddy at best. But it just comes down to he's got to find these holes, he's got to break tackles, he's got to go north. And he isn't doing any of that. Jalen Warren, on the other hand, not only is he blocking on pass plays, showing a lot of effort, showing a lot of heart, he's also so fast, so physical. He's completely showing him up. It's insane.
So we go back to the question real quick before I get into some other ones. For Ian, is Kenny Pickett the future of the Steelers?
I have to say, yeah, because I'm looking at upcoming quarterbacks in the future drafts that will be coming up. And I don't really like none of them. Pickett compared to the other guys. Bryce Young, me personally, I'm going to say it now, I think he'll be a bust. So, I'm not looking at a guy like him, really. And overall, the quarterbacks coming up, I just deem them as kind of weak. So, although Kenny Pickett, I don't know if he'll one day ever get a Super Bowl, but I do think he will continue to develop and take this team to the playoffs in the near future.
That's a good point. So, we say how bad the Steelers' offense is, but some people blame it on Kenny. They're saying he can't get it done. He's not the guy. Saying the same thing about Mitch. But we look at Matt Canada and Mike Tomlin. What's your guys' opinion on that, and how does that play into the Steelers' record?
I almost wonder if it's overblown at some point. There's going to be a breaking point where the team's going to figure it out, and they're just going to realize this is the play call. We got to get it done. Mike Tomlin, he's one of the best coaches of all time. I really believe that. He's just a fantastic coach. There's a reason every time they lose a game, they always bring up the stat, Mike Tomlin's never coached a losing season. It's because he's fantastic. The team is just not there, especially with their secondary relying on guys like Akello Witherspoon, Tremaine Edmonds. Is just a really bad situation. Or is it Tremaine or Terrell Edmonds? It's one of the Edmonds brothers.
It's Terrell, I'm pretty sure.
Terrible, really. It's just a very bad team, and there's only so much we can say. Oh, it's Canada's fault. Oh, it's Tomlin's fault. Oh, it's someone else's fault.
I have to disagree with you there. I'd like to get Ian's opinion here in a second, but I really think we can blame it a lot on Matt Canada. We just look at the play calling, and compared to at least the Chiefs, the Chiefs' offensive play calling, even other teams, is so much more impactful than the Steelers. I mean, you're running 1-2 yard screen plays on third down, and it's just not going to work for you. I mean, what do you think about that, Ian?
I got to go along with Andrew here. Matt Canada, I mean, I think he's flat out terrible. I mean, you look at the Steelers' offense, they do have some playmakers. I mean, Deontay Johnson, he's elusive. What we thought Najee to be, but right now, I mean, he's really been slumping it, so I can't really mention him. But, I mean, Kenny Pickett can run. You got Pat at tight end, who's a good big tight end, athletic.
George
Pickens there, too. So, I mean, I just can't see how this offense is so bad because of that talent. I blame it on Matt Canada solely.
George Pickens looks insane.
Do you think that the Steelers are punting the season, or do you think they're calling it quits and looking for the future, especially with Chase Claypool being sent to Chicago?
I mean, when was I feel like we've seen this play calling for the whole season. I can't say that they're just doing this now because they want to, tank the season to get a draft pick. I feel like they're trying to win. What do you think?
I kind of got to agree. I feel like the Steelers, what I've seen before, I'll take an instance in the last year. There's a stretch where they tied the Lions, and it looked pretty unlikely now that they were going to get into the playoffs, and their upcoming schedule looked real hard, and their upcoming 6 games, and a lot of people were saying, you're sitting at about 5-6 wins, why not tank and lose the rest? Pretty sure they played them out, and they ended up winning 9 games. Pretty sure they went 4-2 in that stretch and finished with a 9-7-1 record. So I mean, it's just not typical Steelers to go and tank away the season. But that was Ben Roethlisberger's last year, so I don't know how they'll take it with Kenny Pickett going forward.
So we take a look at the Steelers' wins so far. They're 2-6. They beat the Bengals and the Buccaneers. When we go back to Kenny Pickett, does Kenny Pickett even get credit for those wins, or is that really Mitch who gets credit for those?
Well, the thing about it is he only played in the Tampa game, so that's already one win we can't attribute to him. But can we give it to him for the Tampa Bay game? I'm looking at the stats here, and I gotta say, you can't. I hate to say it, I really do, because it's hard to be so hard on these rookies. It really is, because they're trying their best, and it's their first year in the league, still learning everything. But he couldn't even eclipse 70 yards. He threw 18 passes. It's just unacceptable, really. I get it. Tampa Bay has a great defense. I love it. But is this really all we got to expect to say he's the reason we won? Could Mitch not have done better? I don't know.
So, Ian, I go back to you with that question. Do we give Kenny credit for those wins, or do we really credit Kenny for all the losses we've had?
I got to give it kind of a combination. Kenny Pickett definitely this year. I mean, he hasn't been nothing special. I mean, he's shown some flashes of great potential with his running ability, and he does make some spark plays at times. But, I mean, then again, with however many games he's played, I think he came in week 4. I mean, he has 1 win under his belt, and he's sitting at about 3-4 losses or something like that. So, I don't want to go out and say, I mean, Kenny Pickett's the reason why they're losing every game, but he definitely takes account of it.
Yeah, I agree with that there. He's got a really bad team. It's just how it's going to be. It's hard for a player like him to really shine in a system that almost doesn't appreciate him. So far in his career, he's been sacked 12 times, including 6 last week against the Philadelphia Eagles. It's just a bloodbath over there. It's hard to expect your quarterback to really come out and say, hey, I'm going to win this game, I'm going to win that game, when he's the only one who's really seems like he's showing up. It's just a really rough scene Pittsburgh is right now.
So, we like to bash on the Steelers, but I would like to give a little bit of praise to their defense at some points, because TJ Watt's been out. Does that affect the losses in a way?
Yeah, I would say it would. TJ Watt takes over games. This is how it is. One player I'd like to highlight is Alex Highsmith. I believe he has, 5.5 sacks right now, somewhere around that mark. he's been fantastic. He led the league for a bit. Just a really underrated edge rusher who really stepped up after TJ Watt went out with a torn pec.
I mean, yeah. What do you have to say about that, Ian?
I gotta say, TJ Watt comes back. I mean, we've seen the player that he is. He's a reigning defensive player of the year. He's a monster. Even the 1 year he didn't win, it seemed as if he got gypped almost. So, I mean, he tied the sack record last year even. I mean, we saw at the Bengals game the havoc that he wreaked, just his presence overall. He played a good game. I mean, they won that game with him there. And, I mean, the defense, I don't know. It's a little bit shaky at times. And with the terrible offense, I think that even if TJ Watt came back as great as he is, I'd maybe say the Steelers are sitting at 3-5 right now instead of 2-6.
I mean, what's your guys' opinion on Minkah Fitzpatrick? I mean, he seems like he's always at the ball, and I feel like he's always making big plays for the Steelers. What do you think about that?
A fantastic zone player, which is what safeties are supposed to specialize in. The problem is when the Steelers want to blitz and they have to send him into man, he is not a good man coverage player. He gets almost scared playing the player. Hard tackler, almost afraid to tackle, though. He has to really almost hype himself up to make that tackle. We saw A.J. Brown cook him time and time again against when they played the Philadelphia Eagles. It was just a really rough scene. And a lot of the time he was either playing a deep zone, which usually he's good at with man help, or he was in man coverage where he just couldn't keep up with the great wide receivers, the fast wide receivers. Like, I don't know if Zach Pascal played, but he comes to mind. Quez Watkins, A.J. Brown, all these guys, they really made Minkah Fitzpatrick look like a total non-factor. So it really comes down to whether he's here to play or if he's here to kind of rely on others.
So it's almost like Minkah is like half and half. He's there sometimes, other times he's not. We've seen Gabe Davis. He kind of made Minkah look like a little kid, but ripping the ball off him. But I don't know. What do you think about that, Ian?
I gotta go along. Minkah with me has been kind of a 50-50 player, almost like a boomer bust, kind of like how people view Trevon Diggs from the Cowboys. I mean, Minkah, we've seen times where he's made huge picks, takes pick sixes. I mean, he returns a good bit of picks back to the end zone and stuff. But I mean, there's been times where you see him in coverage and he's just kind of they're just cooking him. So he's 50-50 to me.
So almost going back to the debate about Kenny Pickett, we look at him, would you guys say he was a little bit, or maybe a lot, overrated coming into the NFL?
I gotta say, yeah. Me personally, I mean, when the Steelers drafted him, I mean, he's a hometown kid. It was exciting to see him come to the Steelers and all, but you gotta take into account, I mean, this guy's 24 years old. He's old for a reason to be coming in the league as a rookie, and he's 24. I mean, he actually stayed an extra year at college because he knew if he entered the draft that year before, he probably wouldn't have got taken too high. So, I mean, the Steelers took him, picked 20th, I think it was, and the talk was, oh, Steelers got the first quarterback off the board. But, I mean, when I look at it, I think it's a little bit of an overhype, the whole he was the first quarterback taken. I mean, Kenny Pickett himself, I mean, the dude has to wear 2 gloves on his hands. I mean, that just shows his hands are small, so he has to wear gloves to grip him better. Not the brightest sign you want to look for in a QB. So, me personally, I think he is a little bit overrated heading into the league.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. I thought he was a fine player at Pitt. Really stepped it up his final year, which is why he was drafted in the first round. That's why he had first round hype pretty much all throughout the draft process. He's a fine quarterback. Is he, that top 20 material? I don't think so. But you also got to bring into perspective, these position values. Pittsburgh needed a quarterback. They needed someone for Mitchell Trubisky to be a bridge to. And you could say, oh, I think Malik Willis would have done better. Or Matt Corral or Carson Strong, whoever's in there.
But, yeah, I get you say that, and I agree with that. We have to look at the draft class. Overall, I would say that's a pretty weak draft class, wouldn't you, compared to years before?
For quarterbacks, yes. For other positions, I don't know. We've seen some great performances from Aiden Hutchinson. We've seen great performances from Kyer Elam, Tyler Linderbaum, guys I've already mentioned because they were just they've been fantastic as rookies. Rookies on playoff teams, I should mention.
Do you have any rookies to mention? I'm thinking of Olave, but who do you have, Ian?
One of the main guys, which I think Rodney just forgot overall, was Brees Hall. I mean, he just went down with that injury, but I mean, he was really coming along here. I mean, he was looking like a wrecking ball. He had that huge game against the Dolphins. I mean, he just looked fantastic. And also to add in the fact there's Pierce for the Texans. He looks like a bowling ball. There's a clip of him against the Eagles this past Thursday night. I mean, it looked like he could have got tackled 5 times, and he just kept bouncing up and running around. I mean, I got to go and say, other than QBs, this draft class looks pretty strong.
Oh, we got Ken Walker for the Seattle Seahawks as well. It's been fantastic. Really, I almost want to say revolutionized their offense, especially in the post-Russ era with Geno Smith turning into a star right in front of our eyes at this late stage in his career is really amazing. And you got to give Ken Walker some credit for that, for taking some pressure off, because that play action is nasty. Because you don't want to leave Ken Walker in the open field. You're not tackling him. He's either going through you, he's juking past you. You're not catching him with that elite speed. He's been a fantastic running back that the Steelers could have gotten instead of Kenny Pickett.
To go along with Kenneth Walker, I mean, the kid's a stud. I actually liked him a lot coming into the draft. In one of my fantasy leagues, I actually stashed him on my bench just in case Penny, who was the starter, got hurt, and that's what happened. I mean, Walker, from the first time he really got the chance against the Saints, that was the game where Penny got that season-ending injury. I mean, Walker came in, ripped a 60-yard touchdown. He finished the game with 15 rushes for 88 yards and a touchdown. And from there forth on, I mean, it's kind of been ridiculous of what he's been doing. Pete Carroll added a statement before the Cardinals game this past week that they feel like they haven't even unleashed Walker yet. In this past week, I mean, Walker just tore the Cardinals to shreds. I mean, I'm pretty sure he had about 165, 170 rushing yards, scored 2 touchdowns. I mean, the kid almost reminds me of LaShawn McCoy with his vision and shiftiness and the way he bounces around the place. I mean, he looks like a real stud, and I give him a lot of credit for the Seahawks 6-3 start in their 4-game win streak they've been on.
So we mentioned all these star players, and I just don't feel like Kenny Pickett comes to mind. It almost looks like the Steelers got the short end to the stick in this draft, but I mean, they kind of did that to themselves. I mean, what do you think about that?
Not a star yet. Could be. Absolutely could be. I might even say that it's likely he'll be a star. He's got a lot of great tools. He's got developing receivers. Just not a star yet. We're going to have to wait and see on him.
I got to go along and kind of agree. I kind of feel like the Steelers, I mean, I wouldn't say they got the short end of the stick, but it is a little bit questionable. To add back on about Kenny at college, I mean, he did that fake slide. Everyone started hyping him up. I mean, it was great and all, but it also added to the hype about him. And I mean, even the conference that he played in at Pitt, I mean, that's weaker competition. He was already so old playing weaker competition. I mean, I can see why the Steelers took him. Hometown kid. Shows a lot of potential, but it does make you question, is he really going to be that star that the Steelers need one day?
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. So, overall, when we go back to our original question, is Kenny Pickett the Steelers franchise? I just want to summarize your guys' opinions on that. So, Rodney?
No, I don't think he is. He could be, but if we're looking at it right now, I wouldn't bet too much on it. He's just an older quarterback who looks as raw as a, redshirt sophomore coming in. He looks just like he hasn't played enough. And maybe that'll change the more he plays.
So, I asked that same question to you, Ian. Is Kenny Pickett the Steelers franchise quarterback?
I gotta say, yes. I gotta say Kenny Pickett is the Steelers franchise quarterback. I mean, he's shown great scrambling. I mean, and mainly the part that sticks out to me is the kid wants to win. You haven't seen someone that competitive. I mean, me personally, he's one of the most competitive players I've seen in a while. And I think when you have that will, I mean, I know Kenny's going to put in the work. I think he's going to keep improving. The Steelers are going to give him the chances with the game time. And eventually, I mean, I don't know if I'd say Super Bowl, but I feel like Kenny could lead them to multiple good regular seasons and playoff visits, and then maybe one day, who knows, maybe Pickett will get a ring with the Pittsburgh Steelers.
So I'll toss in my opinion on that. I really think Kenny could be the Steelers. I'm going to have to go with yes. I think Kenny Pickett is the Steelers' franchise quarterback for a while. I mean, he kind of reminds me of Big Ben in a way. And, Big Ben went in. He went on a win streak? Didn't he win? Was it 10?
He won like 10 games straight.
10.
It was something.
So we look at that, and I compare him to Ben Roethlisberger, but we also got to take into account that Ben had a way better team and a lot better people around him. Kenny's struggling. We don't have a true running back on the Steelers anymore. The line is horrible.
Terrible.
I mean, the defense, we got to remember the injuries. There's a few here and there, but the defense, I just feel like they give up so many passes and deep passes that just other teams aren't giving up. I feel like overall the Steelers are just horrible, and it reflects poorly on Kenny Pickett and makes him look worse than he actually is. So overall, I do think Kenny Pickett is their franchise quarterback. I think it's just going to take more time than people expected. People expected him to come in and just start winning them games, but he just doesn't have enough on his team to win the games.
All a lot of valid points there. Personally, I don't have any more comments on the situation. Ian, do you?
I gotta say with no, I feel like I got all my points in and all the things I wanted to say in.
Yeah, it's almost like we'll just have to see what's going to happen here. I really don't know how the rest of their season's going to go. I don't think it's going to be very good. But, I mean, then again, if TJ Watt comes back, he makes a pretty big impact. They could start to win games, but I just don't think this year's their year. Maybe next year. But anyways, Ian, thanks for being here with us. It was nice hearing another person's opinion on this, but I think that about does it. I'm Andrew.
And I'm Rodney.
And this is A-Rod Pod. Thanks for listening, guys.